Johnny Carson's driver dropped him off at the same place every Wednesday night for 20 years. Not a restaurant, not a bar, not a secret fair. It was a children's hospital. And what he did inside those walls is the real reason America still loves him. Bobby Mitchell had been driving celebrities in Los Angeles since 1967. But in all his years behind the wheel, he'd never had a client quite like Johnny Carson. Every Wednesday night, rain or shine, for 2 decades, Bobby would pick up Johnny at 7:30 p.m. from locations that changed each week. A street corner in Burbank, a parking lot behind a grocery store. Johnny would be wearing jeans, a plain t-shirt, a baseball cap, and sunglasses. Even at night, Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. Johnny had said that first night in 1972. And Bobby, from now on, we're doing this every Wednesday. But you can never tell anyone about this. Not your wife, not your friends, nobody. Can you do that for me? Bobby agreed, though he didn't understand why the biggest star on television needed such secrecy to visit a children's hospital. But as the weeks turned into years, he began to understand. This wasn't about publicity. This was about something else entirely. Patricia Hayes was a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital Los Angeles when she first noticed a man in the baseball cap. It was September 1972, and he was sitting by the bed of 7-year-old Sarah, a leukemia patient doing card tricks. Sarah was giggling, the first smile her nurses had seen in weeks. "Who's your friend, Sarah?" Patricia asked. "Mr. C," Sarah replied. "He knows so many tricks." The man smiled but said nothing. He kept his cap pulled low and his sunglasses on despite being indoors. Something about him seemed familiar. Mr. C came back the next Wednesday and the one after that. Every single week, always around 8 p.m., always in disguise, visiting the children who needed him most. 3 months later, Patricia was at home watching The Tonight Show when Johnny Carson did a card trick during his monologue. The hand movements were identical to Mr. C's. That's when she realized Mr. C was Johnny Carson. The next Wednesday, Patricia was waiting for him. When Johnny saw her, he froze. "Mr. Carson, I know who you are," she said quietly. Johnny looked at her for a long moment, then slowly took off his sunglasses. "Are you going to tell people? Do you want me to?" He shook his head. "I come here for them, not for me. If people know, it becomes about me. A photo opportunity, a publicity stunt. These kids just need someone to make them laugh and forget they're sick." Patricia understood. "Your secret is safe with me. But why Wednesdays?" Johnny's expression softened. "My son Ricky was in a hospital on a Wednesday. Car accident. I sat in that waiting room feeling helpless. When he got better, I promised myself I'd never let another Wednesday go by without doing something for kids who were fighting battles they shouldn't have to fight." From that night on, Patricia became Johnny's guide, telling him which children needed cheering up most. And Johnny would go to them one by one, armed with card tricks, jokes, and endless compassion. Over the years, Johnny visited over 1,000 children. Some visits lasted minutes, others stretched into hours. Each Wednesday became a lifeline for kids trapped in hospital beds. There was Michael, a 9-year-old burn victim who'd lost 40% of his skin in a house fire that killed his younger sister. The guilt was eating him alive. Johnny spent 7 consecutive Wednesdays teaching him magic tricks he could do with bandaged hands. "Your sister wouldn't want you to disappear, too," Johnny told him. "She'd want you to keep being Michael." When Michael was discharged, Johnny gave him a magician's kit and a note. "Use these to make other kids smile. That's how you honor her." There was Jennifer, a 5-year-old with a congenital heart defect, waiting for a transplant that might never come. She was on the donor list for 11 months. Johnny made up stories about a magical kingdom where playing cards went on adventures, where the Jack of Hearts was brave even when scared. Jennifer laughed so hard the nurses worried. But Johnny knew when to transition to quieter stories. On Jennifer's last Wednesday, the night before her transplant, Johnny said, "Tomorrow you become the brave one in the story." There was David, a 17-year-old with brain cancer who'd given up completely. He'd been an athlete before the diagnosis, captain of his high school football team, full scholarship to USC waiting for him. Now he was bald, weak, and refused to speak to anyone. His parents sat outside his room crying. His friends stopped visiting. But Johnny sat with him anyway, week after week, saying nothing, just sitting there in that hospital room reading a book or doing card tricks in silence. After 6 weeks, David finally spoke. "Why do you keep coming back?" "I'm not going to make it." Johnny put down his cards and looked at him. "Maybe you won't, but you're alive today, and today you matter to me. So I'm going to keep showing up on your todays until there aren't any left." David started cooperating with his treatment the next day. He died 4 months later, but his mother later told Johnny that those final months were filled with life instead of surrender. And it started that Wednesday when someone refused to give up on him. The stories multiplied over 2 decades. There was Christina, the 6-year-old with kidney failure, who taught Johnny a song in Spanish. There was Marcus, the 15-year-old car accident victim, who was paralyzed from the neck down and needed someone to tell him his life wasn't over. There was Tiny Emma, born 3 months premature with lungs that barely worked, who spent her first 8 months of life in an incubator. Johnny would press his hand against the glass every Wednesday and tell her she was strong. Some children got better, some didn't. Johnny kept visiting both kinds. Johnny never stayed more than 3 hours. Bobby would be waiting in the car, engine off, radio silent, respecting the sacred nature of what was happening inside those walls. Sometimes Johnny emerged quiet, his eyes red, processing the weight of what he witnessed. A child who wouldn't make it to next Wednesday, a mother's devastated face, the unfairness of it all. Other times, Johnny would climb into the back seat, with pure joy radiating from him. Bobby, you should have seen this kid's face when the card appeared from behind his ear. 7 years old. Hasn't smiled in 3 months, according to his nurse, and he absolutely lost it laughing. "That's why we do this, Bobby. That's the whole reason. You know what's strange, Bobby?" Johnny said one Wednesday night in 1978, 6 years into their routine. "I spend my days talking to celebrities, people who are desperate to be seen, to be remembered, to matter. Movie stars, politicians, musicians, everyone wanting their moment, their applause. But these kids, they're the most real conversations I have all week. They don't care that I'm Johnny Carson. They don't care about ratings or reviews or what the critics think. They just care that I showed up, that somebody came to see them when they felt forgotten." Bobby had been driving celebrities long enough to know that this was different. This wasn't an affair, wasn't a secret vice, wasn't something shameful. This was something sacred. And over 20 years, that understanding deepened. He watched Johnny age from a 46-year-old man to a 66-year-old retiree. But the Wednesday routine never changed. Rain, shine, holidays, personal crises. Johnny showed up. Don't you ever get tired of it? Bobby asked once in 1989. 17 years of the same thing, every Wednesday. Johnny looked out the window at the passing Los Angeles streets. "You know what will make me tired, Bobby? Knowing there's a kid in that hospital who's scared and alone, and I didn't show up because I was tired. That would keep me awake at night. This just gives me peace." The hospital staff who discovered Johnny's secret created an unspoken pact of silence. No media, no publicity, no photographs except the ones Patricia secretly took for her personal records. Documentation of something too extraordinary to be left unrecorded, even if it could never be shared. When Dr. Richard Morrison became hospital director in 1981, Patricia briefed him about the Wednesday visits. Dr. Morrison was skeptical. Surely, someone this famous couldn't keep visiting for 9 years without it leaking. But Patricia took him to the oncology ward one Wednesday evening, and Dr. Morrison watched through a window as Johnny sat with a bald little girl named Emily, teaching her how to make a coin disappear and reappear. The girl's laughter was the first sound of joy Dr. Morrison had heard from her room in weeks. "How long?" he whispered. 9 years, every single Wednesday. He's never missed one unless he's out of the country. From that night forward, Dr. Morrison became part of Protective Circle. He ensured Johnny had access anywhere. ICU, isolation wards, even rooms where parents had to wear protective gear. If a child needed Mr. C, the rules bent. Over the next decade, Johnny visited over 1,000 children. Some he saw once, others became regulars on his Wednesday rounds. The hospital staff started calling it Carson's night among themselves, though never in public. Nurses would prepare their sickest patients, making sure they were as comfortable as possible for their visit with Mr. C. Sarah, that first little girl with leukemia, survived against all odds. She grew up, went to medical school, and specialized in pediatric oncology. For years, she thought of Mr. C as a volunteer, a kind man who'd happen to be there when she needed him. It wasn't until she was in her 30s watching Old Tonight show reruns that recognition hit her like lightning. That card trick Johnny did on TV. She'd seen those exact hand movements before. Mr. C was Johnny Carson. She wrote him a letter in 1998, 26 years after that first Wednesday. She told him she was alive because he'd given her a reason to keep fighting. She told him that every child she helped now was a ripple of his kindness extending through time. Johnny's response came in his own handwriting. Sarah, you were the magic trick. You survived. You became everything I hoped you would become. But you're wrong about one thing. You didn't survive because of me. You survived because you were strong. I was just lucky enough to witness it. Thank you for reminding me why Wednesdays matter. Sarah kept that letter in her office. Years later, after Johnny died, she framed it next to her medical degree. Johnny retired from The Tonight Show in 1992, but continued his Wednesday hospital visits. He kept coming until late 2004, when emphysema made him impossible. He died on January 23, 2005. 2 days later, flowers started arriving at Children's Hospital with cards thanking Mr. C. The current hospital administration was confused. Who was Mr. C? That's when Patricia Hayes decided to break her silence. She called a meeting and told him everything. She showed him a box of photographs she'd secretly taken over the years, letters from parents thanking Mr. C, drawings children had made for him, and a diary documenting 20 years of visits. Why are you telling me this now? The director asked. Because Johnny's gone, Patricia said, and the world should know who he really was. The hospital organized a memorial service. Nearly 100 people showed up, staff members who protected Johnny's secret for years. But the most emotional moment came when the survivors appeared. Former patients, now adults, who'd been visited by Mr. C's children. Michael, the burn victim, was now a firefighter. David, the teenager who'd given up, was now a counselor for at-risk youth. Emily was a teacher. And Sarah, the oncologist, stood up to speak. When I was 7 and dying, Sarah said through tears, a man came to my room and showed me card tricks. He made me laugh when I thought I'd never laugh again. He kept showing up even when everyone thought I wouldn't make it. I didn't know he was famous. I just knew he was kind. He did this for hundreds of children week after week, year after year, without asking for anything. That's not fame. That's love. The story eventually reached the press, but only after Johnny's death, exactly as he would have wanted. The Los Angeles Times ran a front-page story. Ed McMahon confirmed he'd known about the visits, but honored Johnny's silence. Johnny didn't want praise for being decent, Ed said. He thought helping sick children shouldn't be extraordinary. It should just be what you do. Bobby Mitchell, Johnny's driver, finally told a story, too. He remembered 20 years of Wednesdays. The night Johnny cried after a boy he'd been visiting died. The night he laughed because a girl was declared cancer-free. Mr. Carson could have spent Wednesday nights anywhere. Bobby said he was rich, famous, powerful, but he chose sick children in a hospital. That tells you everything. Today, there's a plaque in the lobby of Children's Hospital Los Angeles, in memory of Johnny Carson, who visited this hospital every Wednesday for 20 years without seeking recognition. He reminded us that true kindness is done in secret. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m., the hospital plays Johnny's theme over the intercom. A small tradition, reminding everyone that once the most famous man on television walked these halls in disguise, bringing magic to children who needed it desperately. Johnny's story reminds us that the most important things we do are often the things nobody sees. In a world obsessed with recognition and public displays of charity, Johnny did something radical. He helped people without telling anyone. He didn't post photos. He didn't hold press conferences. He didn't leverage his kindness for publicity or ratings. He just showed up week after week, year after year, and made sick children laugh. That was enough for him. The greatest performance of Johnny Carson's life wasn't on The Tonight Show. It wasn't his interviews or his comedy. It was a performance nobody saw. The one where he pretended to be nobody special. Just a guy in a baseball cap doing magic tricks for children who needed to believe in magic. If this story of secret compassion moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that true goodness doesn't need an audience. Let us know in the comments about an act of kindness you've witnessed that nobody else knew about. And subscribe for more incredible true stories about the humanity behind Hollywood's greatest legends.